see, it's a low-wing monoplane of the interceptor pursuit class, and it's designed to pack quite a wallop. It's equipped with a tricycle landing gear, which is retractable, but just forget that there are 3 wheels instead of 2. It handles much like any other plane. The Allison liquid-cooled engine is behind the pilot, and a drive shaft runs forward to a reduction gearbox which drives the constant speed propeller. This arrangement makes possible the installation of a high-caliber automatic cannon along the thrust line. Some models have a 20-millimeter cannon, and others a 37-millimeter. In addition, there are 2 synchronized 50-caliber guns in the nose and 2 30-caliber guns in each wing panel. You have enough armament here to take care of yourself and make it uncomfortable for the enemy as well. The guns are charged from the cabin and are fired electrically. There is a gun selection panel in the cockpit where you can switch on any or all of the guns. On the stick, there's a trigger for the 30s and 50s and a separate button for the cannon. Considering the firepower the P-39 carries, the rate of climb is exceptional. Its critical altitude varies in the different models between 13,000 and about 17,500 feet. Absolute ceiling is from 32 to about 35,000 feet. The engine in the different models varies from 1,150 horsepower at sea level upward according to the rating of the particular engine. Cruising at 2,300 RPM and 30 inches of manifold pressure at an altitude of 5,000 feet gives approximately 250 miles per hour indicated airspeed. Stalling speed is about 95 miles an hour indicated, fully loaded and with the flaps down. She handles very well and responds nicely to the controls.
All right, Lieutenant, let's get started.
Setting up on the wing, here's your hand grip, and be sure you don't step on the wing fillet. I see you know your parachutes, Lieutenant. Buckles properly attached, and the straps fit well. I guess you know that it pays to have your parachute right. Okay, climb in. Compact little office, isn't it? You'll find everything you need here, and all conveniently located. First, have a look at the rudder pedals to see if they're properly adjusted for you. Down on the side of the pedal, there's an adjustment with 5 positions. Press the lever with your toe and set the pedal to the length that's comfortable for you. And do the same on the other side, but be sure both pedals are set to the same position. You might look back at the rudder as a further check on this. And at the same time, try your controls to be sure of their operating sense. Check the rudder, the elevators, and your ailerons, too. Here, let's plug in your radio connections. Just behind your right shoulder are the jacks for your throat mic and headset. Be sure they're securely fastened. During the energizing operation, turn on the booster pump, which will bring your fuel pressure to about 13.5 pounds. When sufficiently energized, check to see that your prop is clear before pressing forward to engage. As soon as it coughs and catches, move the mixture control to automatic rich. Then turn off the booster pump long enough to be sure the engine-driven pump is operating. Oil pressure should be above 50 pounds and the oil temperature around 30 degrees before takeoff. During warm-up, the coolant temperature will rise more rapidly than the oil. On your right side are the controls for the coolant and oil shutters. Be sure they're open sufficiently. In warm weather like this, the coolant shutter should be opened all the way, while to keep the oil temperature even with the press stone, it need be opened only to the flush position. In colder weather, it would be almost fully closed. If everything is in good order and she's idling all right, you're about ready to taxi out to the runway. After calling the tower, be sure your doors are shut and latched. You'll be more comfortable with the windows fully closed. In this type cockpit, it isn't necessary to wear goggles. Then set your trim tabs. The recommended setting for the elevator is 3 or 4 graduations nose up, the rudder 4 graduations right rudder, and the aileron trim tabs 0 setting. Then release your brakes by depressing both brake pedals. For taxiing, you will find that the P-39 requires only a small amount of throttle, between 1,000 and 1,200 RPM. To turn in close quarters or at slow speeds, you can get full swivel action in the nose wheel by the use of the main wheel brakes, and you'll be able to turn almost in your own span. To prevent overheating, don't delay in getting out to takeoff position for a final engine check. You'll find that the plane has very good taxiing characteristics and that the brakes are very effective. You can taxi downwind, crosswind, or in any direction very easily. It is unnecessary to ride the brakes. At the end of the runway, call the tower and advise them that you're about to complete your final warm-up and check-off before flight. Set your brakes for the rev-up, then advance the throttle. Be sure the various pressures are okay and your temperature is low enough. Be very careful not to overheat. Check the magnetos at 2,300 RPM. First, switch to right magneto, and the drop-off here should be maximum 100 RPM. Then switch to left, and the drop-off should be maximum 60 RPM. Then back to both, and the tack should climb back to 2,300. To be sure the prop governor is functioning properly, pull it back. There should be a drop in RPM. Then push it forward to full low pitch for takeoff. Check the ammeter to see that the generator is working. It cuts in between 1,300 and 1,400 RPM. Finally, to be sure that everything is in good order, there's a checklist provided on the instrument panel. Remember that you have a lot of power pulling this plane and there'll be a lot of torque, so use full right rudder.
Running swell.
All right with me.
All right, Lieutenant. Clockwise check. Gas selector on main. Trim tabs in takeoff position. Flaps up. Landing gear down and locked. Oil and intercooler shutters checked for open. Turbo closed. Crack your throttle 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. Prop lever full forward. Mixture control and idle cutoff. Generator switch on. Prop control switch in automatic. Mags off. Battery off. Cage your flight instruments. Cowl flaps open. Radio off. Tail wheel unlocked. When you've made your clockwise check, you've covered your checklist. But you want to look at your list whenever you're in doubt, and also to check your limits.
Clear? Clear.
Mags on both. Battery on. All right, primer. 2 strokes is enough in this heat. About 15 seconds on your Energizer. Hold it till she whines.
Clear? Clear.
Engage.
Radio on. Idle around 900. Anywhere between 800 and 1,000. Check your oil pressure and temperature. Remember, you're going up between 8 and 10,000. Steep and shallow turns, power on stalls and power off. Pull your flaps up and watch how you settle. We're going up to see how this airplane reacts. Well, let's make this a good one, Lieutenant.
Here you go for number 1. You're S-ing all the time you're on the ground. Keep your head up so you can see what's going on around you. You'll come to know that the position of your wheels is just under your inboard guns. Good thing to know if you're ever running close to the edge. You're taking it easy on the brakes. You're playing with them, not tramping on them. With mags and flap equalizer checked, we're ready to call the tower.
Army 8283 to climb vessel tower. Ready for takeoff.
Pine Castle Tower to Army 8283. Okay to take off on number 4. Over.
Like a kid crossing the street, you look up and down that runway. Tail wheel forward to locked. Clear your engine. Here we go for a good one. Throttle forward with a steady positive motion. You're flying your 47 down the runway. You're not taking for granted that you're going to stay in the groove just because the tail wheel's locked. Keep to the center. Let's go back and see your takeoff again. You're helping the airplane just a little bit. Feel your way to airborne. Now you're getting your wheels up. You're making a good takeoff. Let's see it over again. This pilot is going to be telling the boys about this experience. 47's wide landing gear gives this ship excellent ground looping characteristics that can be your friend in need if your engine should ever fail on the takeoff. Before this pilot looped, he slowed her down as much as possible and unlocked the tail wheel. He gave hard left rudder and left brake to pivot. As for you, you're out of the pattern now and established in your flying. Now you're leveling off at the altitude you want and setting your throttle and RPM for your desired cruising speed, which at this stage of your training will be about 32 inches manifold pressure and 2,250 RPM. Switch from main to auxiliary. You want to keep those instruments in the green. Check your checklist on your operating limits. Trim your plane. Trim tabs on the 47 are sensitive. You can trim your ship quickly and easily with a small adjustment. We're on a definite schedule on this flight, so let's get in those shallow and steep banks and get the feel of the 47. Some low and high-speed turns, and check on your turning radius. Practicing your stalls, notice the amount of altitude you need for recovery. You won't be in any doubt about when the P-47 is going to stall. It'll let you know. buffeting and sloppiness of controls are your stall signals. This airplane will drop straight and has no tendency to spin. Nose down to pick up speed. Let's have another one with wheels and flaps down. Up with the nose slowly. There she goes. Better check the stalling speed on your own individual airplane. Time to head for the barn. With your shoulder harness locked, you're making a clockwise check of the cockpit before landing. Gas selector turned to your tank containing the most fuel. Aileron and rudder in landing trim. Oil shutters and intercooler shutters in neutral. Propeller RPM at 2,550. Mixture control at auto rich.
Army 8283 to Pine Castle Tower. Standing by for landing instructions. Over.
Pine Castle Tower to Army 8283. Okay for landing. You're number 1 on number 4. Wheels down and locked. Over.
Wheels down and locked. Roger.
Canopy open. Cowl flaps closed. Check your flap equalizer. You want the rod to stick out 3/8 of an inch. At 1,000 feet, you're coming in on the base leg. At the turn, you're 600 to 800 feet. 150 indicated airspeed. Coming out of the turn, you're at 500 feet. Flaps pull down. You set your 47 down on the first quarter of the runway. Here's how you look while you're doing it. Flaps coming down. Back on the throttle. You're establishing your glide, about 120. You're lined up with the runway. You're coming in for a normal 3-point landing. Smooth as silk. In the P-47, you don't lower your landing gear with your speed above 200. If your landing gear should fail to come down, get out of local traffic and find out what's wrong. To lower a stubborn landing gear, yaw the airplane. This should bring you in with wheels pulled down and locked. When you're making your turn for a landing, your speed is 150. Coming out, about 140. Never lower your flaps if your speed is above 190. If the flaps don't come down and there's no pressure indicated on the gauge, put the flap handle down and operate the hand pump. Be sure the landing gear handle is in neutral when you operate the pump. This pilot has come in too high and hot. If you should ever find yourself in this position with too much speed or height to land in the first quarter of the runway, pour on the coal and boot it out of there. Give it full power, but don't pull up too steeply. When you're above 500 feet, milk your flaps up. When you get some altitude, go around and shoot another landing. You're making this a good one, but remember that a landing hasn't been completed until you stop rolling. You're not riding your brakes. A little brake. Let them cool off. A little more brake. You're getting down to taxiing speed before you unlock your tail wheel. Get it unlocked before you start to turn. You're S-turning constantly to keep from chewing up somebody's tail. Cowl flaps open. Wing flaps retracted so they don't get nicked by flying stones. When you come into line, you want to leave your airplane the way you'd like to find it for an emergency takeoff. Parking brakes set until the chocks are under the wheels. Radio off. Clear the engine, 1,000 RPM, and then mixture control to idle cutoff. When the propeller stops rotating, cut the mags. Battery off. Fuel selector off. Rudder and aileron trim tabs to neutral. Flaps down. Generator switch off. Flight controls locked. You made it a good one, all right. You knew what you were doing all the time, and you didn't take anything for granted. You took all the necessary safety precautions for ground personnel, yourself, and the airplane. You kept your head up out of the cockpit, on the ground and in the air. You S-ed the airplane all the time on the ground. You used the throttle smoothly on takeoff. You got off the ground nicely. Felt pretty good, too. You glanced frequently at your instruments to see that temperatures remained in the green. You used your time in the air to feel out the P-47, to discover stalling speeds and turning radius. And when you came in, you made a proper turn and approach. That's a nice job of flying. The kind of flying that helps any pilot through transition and into combat.
A fighter bomber, the P-47 Thunderbolt. One engine, one man, one bomb on each wing, extra fuel tanks for range. 6-5's crew chiefs taxi from the dispersal points to the end of the runway. Line up the squadron. All the pilots have to do is climb in and take them away. If you're a crew chief, you've got your own P-47. Sometimes you think of it as your personal airplane. The pilot's a fellow you lend it to every day. You let him fly around in it, and you expect him to bring it back in good condition. No bullet holes or flak holes. After you've been lending your airplane to one pilot for a long time, you get attached to him, too. If you're a pilot, no matter what your rank or how many hours you've had, what counts here is the combat flying you've done. Unless you've done plenty, you're a beginner. You're called a sprog. And you remain a sprog until you're wise to the tricks of the trade. After you put a few missions behind you, you become a sport. Then, with plenty of action, 50 or 60 missions, if you're still around, you're promoted. You become an old sport, a veteran. The big shots, like Gil Wyman, are called wheels. No one knows exactly why. This fella's a wheel, too. Says so in his plane. Major Richard O. Hunziker of Tucson, Arizona. Got 179 missions. Your crew chief can't go along, so you always like to tell him what you're going to do. Got a triple threat mission today. Each section's going after a bridge. I'll come in on a course of about 40 degrees. Same old thing. Go out there and dodge around in the ack-ack. Dive bomb out of a left-hand turnabout and carry the bombs right on down. We're flying top cover on the other two sections while they bomb, and then we go in ourselves. Weather's supposed to be Cavu, so maybe we'll have a good show. All set to go. But you don't. You wait. You wait for 5 minutes. That's the way it's planned. Time to settle down. Relax. You'll be busy later. So if you've got any thinking to do, and who hasn't, now's the time to do it. Here, hold this till I get back. Takeoff is always rough. Thunderbolt's a heavy airplane. Besides, you've decorated it like a Christmas tree. Belly tank, rockets, guns, 500-pound bombs, cameras.
Breakneck, Cola Leader here. We clear to take the runway for a takeoff. Over.
Roger, Cola Leader from Breakneck. You're clear number 1 to take off.
Roger, Breakneck. Thank you.
The mile of steel runway will shrink to nothing under you. Halfway down, by the tower, you'll be committed. That means you can't slam on the brakes and stop. Once you're committed, you usually go up. First pair, Wyman and Gustafson. Second pair taxis out. Goss and Burgess. Made it okay. Amanda and Richardson. Smith and Atwood. Come on, get her up. Hickok and Morrow. Last pair, Welby's and Hunziker. The squadron is airborne. Over Corsica, then out to sea, on the deck. Miles east to Italy. Flying from Corsica, you go only 60 miles and you're 150 miles behind the German front. Turn again on that castle. Now you're heading north into the mountains. Leader section, red section, black section. Formation flying, a game of follow the leader, the squadron leader. He navigates, makes the decisions, doesn't tell you what to do, does it? You follow, wingtip to wingtip. He turns, you turn. He climbs, you climb. Climbing still to 10,000 through the clouds. Getting close. Start looking for the target. Stuck down there in one of those ravines. All look alike. Wingman, he's back. Keep the formation spread out. There's a checkpoint. That road. Follow it down to the river. Your first bridge should be down there, somewhere. There it is. Pass over it. Come back and attack from the opposite direction. One of the tricks you've learned. Leader section. Goes into loose string formation. One plane behind the other. Then, Wyman peels off. The rest of of the section follows. At 2-second intervals. Last man goes in. No bomb sight in a P-47. Pilot does his own aiming. Bomb bursts from the planes ahead. Couple of misses. Direct hit. I hope your aim is good. Drop your bombs. Pull out. They black you out for a second. Blood drains from your head. But you're young. It comes back fast. You're all right now. Leader section reforms. Top cover. Watch his red section bomb. A miss. Another miss. A hit. Black section goes down. Straddle the target. Concussion should do the trick. No more bombs. Still got plenty of gas. Plenty of ammo. Go on the prowl. Ease down on the deck. See what you can find. Railroad tracks. Following tracks. Not a bad way to find a train. You spot one. Kick her over. Give it a few squirts. Might kill somebody. Bust the locomotive first. Train can't move now. Let's see what's in those boxcars. 12 of you. You'll all crisscross in. Everybody takes a few passes. Try the cars one at a time. Might be something interesting in them. Usually is. Got it burning nicely now. Take another pass. For luck. Second flight peels up. Third flight will circle again. This is all the flying the ground crews see. Sometimes you're tired. Land them rough. It's embarrassing. The colonel's not happy about the flak holes. New airplane. His crew chief will be mighty sore. And how will you explain this away? Then, after the interrogation, you relax. Grab off some donuts and coffee. Jive with a Red Cross girl who meets every mission. And fly the show all over again, on the ground. Wyman goes back to work. at being a colonel, missing an action report to sign. A telegram from the War Department has to start somewhere. Up from first light to last light. Only the coming of darkness would stop you. Only the coming of darkness would bring the last missions home to Aldo.